Thank you for joining us on our website today. We're going to be discussing immigration and investment in the United States. And our guests today are Manaz Kazan, who is President and CEO of U.S. Immigration Investment Center, which is based in San Jose, California, but is opening offices here in Washington and around the world, I'm told. We'll hear more about that. And with her is Violet Pavrana. And Violet works very closely with USIIC and Manaz, and together we're going to talk about something known as the EB-5 visa program and the way in which that encourages investment in the United States and allows international citizens to apply for green card status here in the United States, bringing in funds and helping develop this country. So, Manaz, let me ask you, can you tell us a little bit about the mission of United States International Investment Center? The title is very big. Can you tell us about the mission and why and how you formed this company?
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity and the diplomatic connection for arranging this interview.
We're delighted.
Appreciate. Thank you. And for those of you who are watching us and spending your time with us. U.S. Immigration Investment Center has actually opened office in Washington. We have been present in Washington since December of 2011, when we were actively engaging in making our acquisition of Harvest and recapitalization of Harvest, which, as you know, has its own story. And we have opened offices in Dubai as a processing center. We have an office in Los Angeles on Berkshire Boulevard. We believe that it was just a hub for most of the immigrants. And we will be opening our fourth office actually in San Francisco on California Street very soon. We are looking in opening processing centers in Jordan and in Ethiopia within the next 30 to 45 days. So we have been in your beautiful city, Washington, and we absolutely love it here.
Well, so we understand that USIIC is developing an international base at this point. What's the model? What's the mission of the firm? What are you designed to try to accomplish?
Yes, you did ask me on your first question, what's the mission and how did it started? Well, Violet and I have been working in the community from different perspectives. Violet has been a great social philanthropist. She has been helping communities, some very often anonymously, and watching families in need and trying to help families. And I have been working with both banks and families, trying to work out their distress asset and their issues with their property values or property financing part since 2008, when the market literally was in the worst shape. And that was because of my own expertise. So this wasn't something where we planned. I think the mission, as I will get to it, depends on why you started it. We didn't start it because of profit. We didn't start it to purely look at how we become rich and how quickly we can take advantage. We faced with the reality of a need, the desperate need of housing for those who had lost their homes, the desperate need of jobs for families that were coming back. I come from a military family, and when you come from a military family, and if you really understand the Geneva contract, it doesn't matter which country. You understand that those who give for their country are precious. And when they come back home, they deserve housing, and they deserve to have proper training, support, and jobs. And because America is designed around privatization, it would only be natural if some of us who have our motherly instincts and we want to give back, would really, if we can do something, if we can give back to the community that has supported us, then we should. And so that's how I started and thought about it, and needed support, shared it with my beautiful friend Violet, and she was one of the first people who supported the idea, and here we are. So it started for the purpose of giving. The mission is nothing but to give back to the country that has given so much to us and our families. The mission is, in detail, is to provide housing for veterans, health centers, to provide housing for immigrants who just come in and they don't know what's going on, for low income, middle income, and high income. But high income is really not our target. We're really looking at low income and moderate income housing, senior housing. We're looking at helping all kind of job creating factors. But the way to do it for us meant to recapitalize the troubled banks, community banks. Because community banks actually give more. They're responsible more than 50% of the SBA loans, where they only have less than 10% of the total deposits. So help the community banks, recapitalize community banks, so that in return they can lend into the community and hopefully, with our help, go toward projects that would help create housing, senior housing, and all the missions that we have.
Now, if I understand correctly, this is really, and there are two sides to an equation here. I mean, you have talked, Manaz, and I know, Violet, you talked earlier with me about veterans wellness centers, about housing, about recapitalizing failing banks here in the United States. That all becomes possible by attracting foreign investment, international investors, to come into the United States market. And the attraction there is that they're able to, by bringing in a certain amount of investment under certain conditions, they're able then to receive green card status because of their investment. Is that correct?
You're absolutely right. It would be interesting to know that as a commercial broker, I was eager to find U.S. investors who would actually support the idea.
Mm-hmm.
But our market works with a trend, and when consumer confidence is low, nothing moves forward. So everybody holds on to their money. I could not find local investors that would not require high return on their investment, and therefore was not able to pencil out for a lot of the projects. I just couldn't find them. So it was only natural to find other resources. And completely by accident, I was talking to another developer, and I said, "Where did you get the money?" And he said, "Oh, there was a program called DB5, and I made an application. There's such company here and there." And I thought, wow, there is a possibility that we can actually go out and attract others. And then I started looking at Canada and other countries that are successfully doing it. And then I also found that all the failures of the companies, because they were so heavily real estate focused, and that's why we changed our model. And had a conversation with Violet, and I said, I guess it means we have to get out of America and look for others. Because that's how we actually stumbled onto it.
So to put it in business terms here, that the return on investment is different for a foreign investor than it might be for a domestic investor because of the green card status. In other words, they can take a lower percentage return on their dollar investment because, in fact, the real return on the investment is the ability to achieve green card status in the United States, to perhaps access education in the United States for their children.
Absolutely, absolutely. The first intention for an immigrant is, I want to come to the United States. I want to have better education for my family. I want to have freedom and comfort for our entire family. And I want to have security of investment. See, far more than freedom, where everybody talks about it, we have found that that's not one of the problems for them to immigrate. That's not the big issue. The big issue is security of investment, because every time the nations go through a turmoil, they lose everything that they have. And so stability is what they're asking for. And therefore they're willing to be less greedy and have less in returns, in hopes of having a more stabilized entry and to have opportunities for their family. So they have no problem, investing in the United States, their life saving, their hard work earnings into the United States, because they believe this is a country that can offer stabilized investment and can offer a great place for their children to go to
So
school
it's a
and be
sort of
highly educated.
safe haven aspect to
Totally
it.
safe haven aspect. So, oftentimes I get questioned, why are you here? Why are you in my country? Do you think that we don't have any freedom? It's not the question of freedom. That's not the main question. The main question is investment, it's security.
Let me actually skip a question and come back to it. But each of you has had the experience of being an immigrant to the United States. Each of you are Iranian, different situations. But can you tell us, Violet, a little bit about your experience as an immigrant and how that influences what you're doing now, this work with USIIC?
Sure. Has different aspects. From my own personal experience, when I came, as we talked before, I was very young. I was 20 years old. My husband was very young, and we were just left to our own devices to get used to learn the new language, learn the new culture, and how to learn differently. And living here, my adopted home, I can very well have the best of both worlds mingling together. And for me, I believe America is the only country that allows you to have that freedom, to have your own culture, your old culture, and your new culture mingling together and create a better life for you. That was my experience, which is amazing. Because I traveled a lot. Even in Europe, you don't have this kind of freedom to be who you are, not taking your background away from you and giving you the opportunity of a new country. And it's fantastic. So having all these experiences allows us to, when we talk to these investors, show them that not only they're not losing anything of themselves, they're gaining a lot. And for me, that was the most important part that I can bring to the table.
And Manas, what is your story? I mean, you came at about the same time, both of you, in the unknown to each other, I guess, at that point.
Yes.
You didn't know each other in
I wish I had
Iran.
known her sooner. That would be awesome.
But you both came at about during the Iran-Iraq War?
No, I came, it was, Iran-Iran war was in process actually when I came, in 84.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what year you came. We came before the revolution.
Oh, I came right after revolution. In fact, the day that the
At the fall of the
hostages,
Shah and the...
the day that the hostages were taken at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran,
Yes.
I remember I was just just graduated out of high school and thinking, okay, I've learned English all my life. Now I got to go to some other country. There's no hope of staying here. So, and the universities were being shut down, or there was a call
Yes.
about it. And with a friend, we walked over to the American Embassy so I could get a green card with holding, the document in my hand that I can go to one of these universities. Well, as we were walking, there was a whole big chaos. And I'm thinking, what's going on?
You're walking into the midst of a revolution.
It wasn't a revolution. It was the taking over of the U.S. Embassy.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what was going on. Revolution had already happened. And so I told my friend, I said, I don't think we can go to the embassy today. And he just said, unless we will jump over the walls or something, it doesn't happen. So we turned around and we walked over another 3 blocks to the Austrian embassy. And I got a visa right away. And I ended up studying in Vienna, Austria.
Ah.
Did I plan? No. Did I have any idea? I didn't even know how to speak German. Nothing.
And how long were you in Austria then, Mona?
I was in Austria until 83, at the end of 83. So I studied Bodenkultur. It's University of the Agriculture University in Vienna. And I had to start all over again. I mean, talking about immigrant survivalship and the will to make it happen. I think immigrants have that amazing energy that they are able to come in with very little and be able to achieve great things, because during these transitions, 99% are here to make it work, and they often leave everything. I remember when I was in Vienna, my parents were now in a completely turmoil country. Revolution had happened. My dad was a military man. He didn't have a job anymore, and ultimately I couldn't see my parents for over 18 years. So had I known that I would not see my family for 18 years, maybe I wouldn't have run over to the Austrian embassy, but it happens, and we learn to understand the circumstances and make the best out of it. So I think now with the market situation in the United States, again, I think most immigrants are doing exactly that. We came with nothing, we made it, we can make it again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, a gift that is important to understand.
And what brings you, USIIC, and a potential immigrant together? How do you find clients, if you will?
Our experience and truthfulness and transparency. I think they're very important elements in any kind of negotiation. Again, they're not looking at numbers. They're not looking into great returns. They're looking to have a company that is able to be transparent and is able to deliver what is promised. And in order to do that, USIIC needs to maintain that clear transparency and to maintain good relationships with all regulatory agencies and to inform them of all our actions and everything that we do, so that there is no problems and no issues. And we obviously provide Homeland Security with every application that we receive. And in areas where countries such as Iran is considered, where we were born, we need to go through OFAC, the Office of Foreign Asset Control, and we are very, very conscious about the fact that we need to make sure that we do all we can in our due diligence and at the same time provide the proper service.
Now, we've talked a lot using a very technical term, the EB-5 visa program. Can you, between the two of you, explain to us what EB-5 is and how it is different from other forms of visas under which international potential immigrants might come to the United States?
It's very
You want to go first, Bud?
Very simple. It's the difference is this is an investment visa. Basically, the investor brings a certain amount of money, and for that, in order for them to get the green card, they have to provide jobs for 10 Americans. That's the difference between the other visas and this visa. That it has the potential for the investor to get the green card, at the same time provides jobs for 10 Americans, which is a win-win situation. That's the only difference that I see.
And Manas, there is a minimum required investment of how much?
The minimum requirement investment is $500,000 in targeted area. And
what is a target area? I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. Forgive me.
High unemployment.
Okay.
Areas of high unemployment, the government allows you to come with less. And $1 million in metropolitan and fairly stable areas. Our company has been staying pretty comfortably at the level of $1 million or more.
Mm-hmm.
We do not actually even advertise the 500,000. But if we do find banks that do have the capability of receiving 500,000 minimums where they are in high unemployment areas, targeted areas, of course we'll open that channel for them. But for now, we are really trying to bring in as much as we can to the United States for the purpose of creating jobs. So it would be much easier to look into 100 applicants and provide the best service and the best way of, tools and everything that they need in transition, and with $100 million that can be brought in versus 200.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot more energy, time, and facility from USIIC, and obviously putting $500,000 deals are in highly distressed areas with high unemployment. And as much as the investors are not looking at making a lot of money, it is our responsibility not to risk their investment either. So if we can increase the ceiling to the minimum 1 million rather than the 500 that most Chinese companies are actually at 500, if we raise it to $1 million and focus on areas that are a little more stable with low unemployment, we will be able to secure their investment over the time that they need in order to go through the process and get their green card. And that's very important to us.
When they make the commitment of 500,000 or $1 million, then they receive a temporary green card. Is that right?
No, actually, when they make a commitment, then they need to send the funds to a third-party bank, where it will sit there until we will verify whether it's going to go through OFAC, or if not, whether it needs to go to OFAC or not. All applications will be submitted to USIIC.
And OFAC again is Office of Foreign Assets Control.
Correct. If they don't meet OFAC, then all of them will definitely need to go through Homeland Security approval. So we will not be doing anything with them. They will not receive anything until Homeland Security has actually given its blessings. Then they go through the transition of getting their temporary green card. You're absolutely right.
So
the reason I'm very specific about making sure that we as Americans understand this is that obviously I am a U.S. citizen since a long time, so 12, 13 years. However, I'm born in Iran. And believe it or not, even as of today, I get scrutinized a lot more than anybody else because, I mean, face it, being born in Iran is not the biggest chip on your shoulder these days. But we need to defend and understand that these are government relationships. This is not about the people of Iran. There are the people of Iran that want to have a better life, should have the right to have that. And the federal government gives them that right, so long as it's through the proper channel. And so we want to make sure that they understand.
So are you attracting Iranian investors, in fact?
We attract all investors from all nations, again, because our focus is with the people and not with the government. If you have the intention to, you want to come to a better lifestyle, and if you qualify, we cannot find a better lifestyle than living in America. And I can say that wholeheartedly. I've lived in Europe. My parents were in the foreign services. I've lived in most parts of the Middle East since I was 5 years old. And I just came back from UAE, and I can tell you, you cannot own a property in Dubai, fee simple, 100%. Neither can you open a business without giving 51% to somebody else, and that is in 90% of all countries. United States is the only country that actually embraces immigration, and that's the biggest difference that we have with everybody else. And you can have fee simple ownership. You can have your business. Where else would you want? Why would you want to even think about Canada? Who cares? Sorry to all Canadians.
I think the Canadian ambassador may be on the line in a moment.
Oh my God. Well, we have to compete, correct?
We know, correct me again if I'm wrong, my understanding is that the single largest group of EB5 investors are Chinese. Is that correct?
It is. It is. They are the Chinese, absolutely. And guess what? That is absolutely not our target. We love to work with our Chinese clients because being in San Jose, Silicon Valley, San Francisco is a natural thing to work with our Chinese immigrants. But we felt that all eyes were on China. 145 EB5 companies in California alone, and everyone talks about China.
Right.
We feel that there is other market shares that we are tapping into fairly
successfully. One of the interesting things about this, of course, too, is that it's possible to invest in the United States, receive green card status, and at the same time, you're not becoming an American citizen, at least not yet. So you're retaining your home, your natural citizenship. So you would be Chinese or Argentine or something and still have a green card status in the United States.
Yes, in fact, I'm so glad you're mentioning that, because we find it to be extremely controversial when we're out there trying to promote the investments, and oftentimes they look and they say, well, why are you trying to take away our citizens? You don't have to become a citizen. This is a way for you to have maybe a temporary housing until your children finish their school, and maybe situation changes and you want to go back home. You're free.
Right. No, I remember the days before the turnover of Hong Kong to Chinese, return of Hong Kong to Chinese sovereignty, that there were a lot of Hong Kong families investing in Canada, particularly.
Right.
In fact, to the point where Vancouver became known as Hongcouver for a while, because of essentially that safe haven effect of providing a situation where your children might be educated in Canada, or in this case in the United States.
Would you not feel that that was such a shame that we were not able to attract at least a a large part of that into California and San Francisco, where the Chinese community has such a amazingly powerful base.
But
we
we
missed
did
that
actually.
opportunity.
No,
We
we
missed that
did.
opportunity.
The difference.
Some.
Some.
Compared to Vancouver?
Yeah.
Well, now, let me turn that immigration question to Violet for a second. Violet, we talked earlier, but I think it would be helpful to clarify this for people. You're in Silicon Valley in a sense. We here on the East Coast see the same phenomenon of high-tech companies looking for engineers, for computer engineers and so forth, finding a shortage of American-trained engineers, and then turning overseas, looking to bring highly qualified technical staff to the United States. How is the EB-5 program different from those visas that bring the H-1B or whatever it might be, that bring foreign technical experts into the United States?
Well, as Magnus said before, the main difference is that when you bring the specialists like engineers or what have you in the United States, actually you are providing for them. They are giving you their intelligence, absolutely. But you have to understand that we do actually have that intelligence. We have that education here in the United States. We have so many qualified American engineers, so we don't have to actually go and look abroad. So basically we are providing for them, whereas the EB-5, they are providing for us in return for a service. That's the main difference. So they are investing here. Whereas, for instance, if there is an Indian engineer, they come, they get trained. They are not paid as much as Americans, maybe, but a lot of times they go back. So they take money out. But with EB-5, they're bringing the money.
I see.
So they are bringing investments. We're not losing anything, we're gaining. And frankly, in my opinion, there is no need to bring any foreigners. We have a lot of qualified Americans who are looking for jobs here, and they are highly qualified. So there is no need to bring somebody else in, provide for them, and then lose the assets.
Okay. What about, how big is the EB-5 program, Banaz? There is a ceiling, is there not, on it?
Correct, there is a ceiling, but before I get to that, I want to praise my colleague here because she's so right on the money here. It is not only the fact that they get the foreign, I'm not pinpointing Indians, it's just because they're so intelligent and successful in getting the jobs here, hats off to their nation. I think it's important that all of nations that come here and get the training and the intellectual property, whether they're Korean, Chinese, Iranian, Indian, the fact that they leave with all our intellectual property and assets is heartbreaking, because the difference with EB-5 is, as you mentioned, the fact that they're coming. I just wanted to thank you and praise you for making that point. It's amazingly important that we understand that. And in fact, I heard President Obama talking about the fact that we want to keep the students that are going into colleges here where they're being trained, and now they leave the country, to retain them here. And here we are, we bring in engineers, we teach them all we have in our intellectual property in Silicon Valley, and next thing you know, they quit and they're gone because employment is at will here. Now, going back to your question as how big is EB-5, to our knowledge, there are 10,000 visas issued on annual basis. I can't complain. You know why? Because we haven't ever met them.
I was about to say, have there ever actually been 10,000 issued?
No, 3,500, 3,600. Hopefully, we will take the balance of it, and then we'll go back to Congress and ask for more. But so far, we'll be happy to bring, imagine if we bring $1,000 million into this country. We'll be doing a lot.
We've been talking about education, and I know from looking at your website that you have a particular relationship with the Anza College in California, in Silicon Valley. Could you tell us, and I realize that's not the only model, but exactly how that model works and why you're working with the community college system in California?
Well, we noticed that one of the most important issues for the immigrant families is education for their children. De Anza College happens to have one of the largest student body and faculty that supports immigrant families. Being in Silicon Valley, they have had a great capability of understanding their needs and provide several classes for English as second language, as well as experts who would help them to properly come up into the different aspects of their integration with the community, and also moving on to other higher education systems such as Stanford or UC Berkeley or entire UC system or San Jose State, San Francisco State.
Sure.
And California is, I know in East Coast you're very proud of your schools and we're very proud of our schools in California. And in all, we understand that America just offers some of the top schools in the world. And so De Anza College is a great partner for us because of that. With the direction of Brian Murphy and Marta Cantor, who is now Undersecretary of the administration, they really understand the foreign families' needs. John Swanson, who was acting Vice President of De Anza College, is currently on our board. He's also Chairman of our marketing activities. He's a CMO. And so we have a great relationship established, and we will be happy to provide excellent service through not only De Anza College, but all other colleges such as Santa Monica, Birmingham, or any
Sure.
other colleges.
But the notion is that these colleges help ease that transition into the American education system.
Absolutely. Actually, I went to De Anza, and it was a great help because, again, you see the diversity of all the immigrants going through De Anza. And not only the students, the faculty also is a mixture of different cultures. So it's a great way to ease your way into United States. And I have to add that De Anza is one of the best community colleges that we have. So it's not just a community college, it's one of the best ones that can offer you education for those who want to ease their way in and also have a very good education at the same time. So it's a great choice.
Yeah, one of the first that actually built, I think it's the Platinum LEED building. They have a great, they're one of the best nursing schools.
Yes.
And they have the largest satellite and solar services that is on a campus. So we're very proud to be using it.
Now, your West Coast base, your business background, Manaz, was commercial real estate on the
Yes.
West Coast before starting this. So why turn all of a sudden to the other coast, to those of us here on the East Coast? Why decide to open a Washington
You want a
office?
logical answer or an emotional answer?
I want them both.
I love Washington.
Exactly.
We just love Washington. And you know,
Absolutely.
I don't know, it's maybe our Middle Eastern upbringing. You can't do anything without being present in the capital. This is the capital. If you have something to say and you're not afraid of saying it and you have nothing to hide, then be here and let people know what you want to do. So this is where all the government is run. This is where policies are made, and this is where you have the best of the best. So
Now, was that the illogical or the emotional
No,
answer?
this
I
is
think
a
it's
logical.
both.
It's a great
It's both.
city, and why not here?
Why not
The
here?
energy in
Okay.
the city is fantastic.
yeah.
What about, I've talked all around it, and it's time to ask the specific question. You've adopted a somewhat different model for your approach to EB-5 by focusing on the banking industry and distressed, undercapitalized banks. Can you first explain sort of how that would operate or does operate, and then why choose banking as opposed to manufacturing automobiles or something like that?
If you don't mind me answering it in reverse, I want to start
Okay.
with why banking and then how it works.
Not at all.
As a commercial broker, I was also, prior to becoming a commercial broker, as a commercial banker as well. So I did a lot of mortgage banking on primary residence as well as commercial properties for just about 20 years. In 2006, I actually sold off primarily all my mortgage lending because I was fearful of the underwriting guidelines. As a broker, we have a great responsibility for accuracy. And when paperwork was basically no doc, it was a little fearful for a responsible broker to have 17 gardeners on the same day. So, I just decided that this was too much for me, and I wanted to leave the mortgage industry and move into more of a commercial development and consulting base. I accepted to become a part of Coldwell Banker and became president of Coldwell Banker Commercial Bay in Northern California, and we had a successful operation until market crashed. At that time, because of my banking relationship, banks requested for me to do consulting with them to work with their NPAs. At the same time, which is a non-performing asset, at the same time, clients who owned properties were being pressured by the banks for payment or trying to say, or they had lost tenants. So with no tenants, the buildings were not cashing out, they couldn't do it. But the worst part was when clients were in the middle of construction. And I thought it was tragic. I think it made the biggest impact on my personal professional life when I was looking at a family that they had a free and clear property, and now they want to build a better property. They go out and get a construction loan, and let's say $5 million, and the building is appraised at $7 million, $10 million, whatever, so guidelines are working. And now it's the time of crunch, and the bank is not lending anymore. Now the bank comes up with all kind of excuses, 300 pages. There is a line that would stop him to make that payment. But at the end of the day, you have a building that is half done, the family can't move in, now they have a lien on the property, they can't finish it because nobody's giving them a loan, and ultimately, I was seeing these families in tears in bankruptcy court hallways. It broke my heart. And I blame the banks. I blame the banks wholeheartedly because I felt this was a partnership. You promised to pay for a construction loan. I have no other way to go. I'm in the middle of this deal. What difference does it make what the building is appraised today? It's irrelevant. I don't have a home, correct? You have a partnership, you have to pay me. So then for some reason, I got an assignment with the bank and I looked at their problems with the regulators where they were now under a credit crunch. Now they couldn't fund. The whole thing is a nightmare. It's a nightmare that someone needs to look into, and I call it criminal. I mean, well, how could you do this? How could you come up with all kind of excuses and have families, developers, contractors out on the road just because you can find excuses? You're larger, you're stronger, and they're just not that strong. And EB5 was a way for me to use the fund and then take the money, and instead of trying to be Jeanne d'Arc of everything, come in and work with the system. How can I go back and help the family? Was to empower the bank so that they can get their credit levels back up so that they can continue that loan with you, whether it's a modification or whatever. Maybe somehow we can find tools that we can relieve the banks from their NPAs and their problems while we're recapitalizing them and allow them to bring back money into the community. How does it work? Is for every dollar that we put in, we have the power, the multipliers that works better. So instead of building a $100 million development like a hotel, and I'm not going to name names, there are many that you know if you look at Google, and risk your money into one establishment, we take the $100 million and recapitalize community banks, and with the power of 10 or 30, with proper management that's approved by the Federal Reserve, approved by FDIC because they have to see the new business plan, we take the money and infuse it back into the community at a higher level. 100 million now becomes 300 million, 150 million. So the impact is far greater, sometimes as high as 1B. I mean, just the 10 times the multiplier is 1B, so if you have enough deposit accounts, look at the impact you make for all the people around. The private banking and the micro bank division, which Violet leads, I let her talk about that, but I just want to give you a little bit of that division, why it's important. Because if we have a private banking, then we can support models where we can go out and those banks that we are not recapitalizing, go in and get into a negotiation of cleaning their NPAs, the non-performing asset for them, at a higher value that Wall Street is paying, and instead of kicking people out of their home, modifying it the way the president wants. And make sure those families stay in their job. Make sure SBA loans are out there to keep their jobs and with their homes. And in turn, provide better training and facilities for veterans who give their life for us. done it.
But
Absolutely.
she mentioned, Vanaz mentioned microfinancing, and let me ask two questions at once, and then you can answer them in either order.
Okay.
One of them is this question about microfinancing and exactly what you mean by that, and how that relates to the other programs, the bank recapitalization. The other one that I found fascinating is that another kind of investment you mentioned, which relates to the veterans issue, and that's veterans wellness centers. I think that's something that perhaps people haven't heard that much about that would be something worth highlighting here.
Absolutely. Well, the microloan is very simple. Often banks do not give small loans for small businesses. And that's a shame again, because people can be on their own feet. We don't have to have such a huge unemployment if the banks would really look at these proposals, small proposals. So what our bank is proposing is to look at these small businesses, their proposition, what they want to do and everything, and provide with the small loans. And it will make a tremendous effect on the small communities. That's one thing. And the other one, as we both talked, we are very passionate about helping the veterans. One thing that is really lacking is the wellness centers. We are looking at a facility actually in Southern California that would help the brain damage veterans. It's an amazing facility, amazing opportunity, and again bringing the EB-5 money to it can broaden the facility and help the veterans who are really in need of this help. And the way that it's set up, it's not going to cost the veterans themselves much, because the one thing that they don't have is the insurance, which is, again, in my opinion, since they have done their part, it's criminal not to have their backs at this point of need for them. So not having the insurance or not having sufficient insurance, the way that this facility is geared, it would be almost to no cost to the veterans to go and get this treatment that they badly need, because they have the brain injuries or they have the burns or whatever might they have. So it is just amazing.
So it's in a sense trying to add another layer to the healthcare
Absolutely.
services that veterans are receiving, because we're seeing obviously very, very high survival rates of horrid injuries that would have been death-dealing in an earlier war, but then require dramatic rehabilitation efforts and ongoing care, and that quality is not always there at this point.
It's not there, and that's why, especially with these veterans who have injuries to their brain, we see they commit suicides or they commit murders, which is not in their control. But we can do something to help them. In San Diego, 20% of the people who are in jail are the veterans, and it's a huge number. Why? Because they're homeless, they have no opportunity, they have health issues. What do? They don't know what they're doing, and they come from battlegrounds. They've seen horrors, and they don't know any better. And most of the time, these are kids who went through war, and they're coming back with no support. They're left to their own devices. We are providing support for them to make them healthy, and then provide education or job training, and get them off the street and providing housing for them. These are all covered under the microloan and small business loans and private banking.
Manaz, what is the process? What is it that you do? You locate an investor, then what's the process? What happens? How long does it take? What happens when the applications go into the federal regulatory process? What's sort of the timeline of actually going from the point of looking for investors to actually getting investments made?
Timelines depends on how long you can stay awake at night. Oftentimes meetings overseas do not start until around 11:30 at night, and if you can stay awake through 3 or 4 in the morning, you have a successful meeting. This is very valid during the month of Ramadan, that most people are actually sleeping there. But putting that aside, I think we have been very successful, and we have been blessed with the fact that we have not had any difficulty really attracting closing investors.
Mhm.
We have had difficulty letting people know who we are and where we are
Sure.
because of the fact that we're not so welcome in all countries. At least I can tell you, for my own country, I was advised by someone, we don't really think you want to come to Iran. Well, I haven't been there for 11 years, but not for a specific reason. But this time around with what we're doing, I think it's important for them to know that we are doing nothing but doing what is right for people of all nations.
Mm-hmm.
We are not targeting one country or the other. It's whoever wants to come into the United States and passes the Homeland Security. But once we're sitting with an investor, normally we close in a very short time. Our processing center in Dubai has received over 200 applications right now. We are ready to submit several of the applications to the Homeland Security. Our immigration attorneys are David Herson of Fragan & Firm with 28 locations throughout the world and offices in Dubai. Our general counsel is Mr. Sir Sura. He is an Indian French and understands also the needs in the United States and highly educated individual. And so with the help of Lisa Balbawana, who is in charge of the Veterans Health and Research in California, we're blessed. We have a great team. We are blessed with amazing support and help. And now what we need is to let people know that we are ready. We are here to help them. And we are ready to take their application and defend their position with the USCIS and help them with their green card. The minute they give us their documentation, full documentation, and their commitment for the money, we send it to our immigration lawyers for EB-5. We pay for all OFAC because it's actually a mandate on us.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get an OFAC if we work with someone that needs it. So we will do that right away. Within 60 to 90 days, they should be receiving their application for an interview at one of the embassies. Which then within 30 days to 60 days after that, they can enter the United States and obtain their green card. And they obviously have to go through the health securities, health checkup for any other.
Sort of standard visa.
Old standard procedure. But it's a fast track. Instead of my sister, who still lives in Iran, has been waiting over 9 years to get a green card through my mother. So when people get mad at me and say, well, why are you doing this when some people have to stay 9 or 10 years? You know what? They're just different programs. She has a choice now to put $1 million and come sooner. But if she doesn't want to put the $1 million, then she waits another year or two. But that's the difference between different classes. EB-5 is a fast track. You can invest in the United States, and the government allows you to come in faster. You go through the same process as any other immigrant. You go through the same verifications as any other immigrant, and you also have the 2-year waiting time as any other immigrant with the law these days. And once your 2 years is passed and you prove to be a good citizen, you have the right to obtain a permanent green card. Now from that moment on, you're free. You can take your investment, you can do whatever you want to do, you can continue with us, which we hope to. But if you don't want to...
And you could become an American citizen or not.
And you can become an American citizen or not. It's your choice, whatever you would like to do. But in interim, you have had the opportunity to live in the best country on the planet Earth, in our opinion.
So is it, I guess my follow-up question quickly would be, is it really a fast track? I mean, or is there a backlog of approvals at Homeland Security, at CIS? Can it be done quickly, or is it in fact a fast track on paper but a slower track in regulatory reality?
You know, it's always a matter of comparison. So if you want to compare that with my sister's situation, I think it's a hell of a fast track. 8 years versus, let's say, even a year.
Yeah.
But as far as the backlog, my understanding is that the $500,000 investment obviously has been promoted greatly, so there is a big backlog on that. We hope that with going out and working harder for the higher $1 million rate, we will be able to reduce the time much faster. But no, I think USCIS is doing a great job. The government is doing a great job. After all, they have to verify and make sure that things are done right. So we have no complaint. We are very happy.
Well, it might take longer for some individuals because of where they're coming and how their money is is being verified. But usually it's between 3 to 5 months. Now, for some reason, for some people might be longer, but generally it is very fast track.
Okay. What about, I'll ask Violet and then Manas, you may jump in if you'd like as well, but how do you find and screen potential investors to know that they're serious and that they have the financial resources, and how do you find and screen investment opportunities here in the United States? You're eventually going to marry those two, the investors and the investment opportunities, but how do you find them, how do you screen them before you put them together even?
The investors are most of the time that have come through recommendation of people that are known to our CEOs or our managers or other people around who are working actually. So we know who they are. But they go through interviews and they go through kind of screening to make sure that they are who they say they are. But as far as the screening for their money sources and all that, that's the burden on, unfortunately, Homeland Security, because we have no way of...
so that's done actually through the embassy consulates and Homeland Security.
Absolutely, because we have no way of verifying that, and it's frankly very difficult for us to verify that, where the money is coming from. But we know that they have the money. Now, if it's clean or not, that's up to Homeland Security to find out. And as far as how we match...
Okay, because you said it very gently, Violet, but let me just highlight that again. You said if it's clean or not.
Yes.
I mean, one of the concerns is something like EB-5 being used for money laundering along the way.
Exactly.
And that's where OFAC would come in,
Correct.
right? Again, Office of Foreign Assets Control.
Correct.
They're the ones who would do the screening about what is the source of this income.
Exactly, because the last thing we want to do is to bring the money laundering or the terrorist money or anything that's related to that. We don't want to bring any of that here. That's why I call it clean money.
I understand.
That's the part that
I understood, but I want to, I'm always conscious of those 1,000 people out there who are watching us, so that we can make these things clear.
So it has to be completely verified. That's why I said that in some instances it might take longer than 2 to 5 months to make sure that everything is according to the letter of law.
Right.
And then you ask how do we match the investors and investment. The best thing that you're doing is through the banking, and it's as secure as it can be through the banking investment. And we have amazingly strong banking members team actually. Again,
not many American investors would be as closely vetted as the international investors are being at this point. But, well, there was that word, bank. Let's go back to that for a minute, Manas. I know that earlier this year there was a good deal of press coverage of the possibility that USIIC would be bringing investors to a local bank here in Gaithersburg, I think it is, Harvest Bank. I know now that those assets have been sold to a different banking group, but could you tell us, just because people heard about USIIC and Harvest, exactly how that unfolded and how it impacts your model of investing in banking?
It was an amazing learning curve for us, and we have learned to understand that not everything we want may happen. There are limitations. We are starting on a model that has never happened before. But the regulators and the Federal Reserve has been extremely kind to us to understand what we're trying to do and to guide us in a proper way. The limitation set on USIIC was not for any purpose of our nationalities or background or anything. The limitation was purely based on banking guidelines, which meant so long as we're not a holding company, we were not able to acquire or invest in participate in recapitalization by more than 24.9%. That limitation did not allow us to help harvest the way we wanted to. We had the money, we didn't have the power to do more than we were allowed, and we had no intention to break the law. So unfortunately, we just had to sit back and watch for the events to unfold, and it meant a huge, negative PR for our company, because not everyone knows what goes through with these directions. And I got bombarded by phone calls saying, "Well, if you were trying to save a bank, why didn't you put the money?" Oh, we couldn't. We were limited to 24.9. So now we have...
Because those were foreign investors?
No, this is simply a banking rule. So long as you're not a holding company, approved by the regulators, you cannot invest more than 24.9%. And you have to also bear in mind that the foreign investors are entering into a limited partnership situation with USIIC, and it is the actual vetted and approved managers within USIIC, such as Stacy Conti and Mr. Gossard, Bob Gossard, our CFO and our Chief Banking Officer. They're the ones who actually go through, find these proper investments, and then they represent the company and the foreign investors' interests within the banks. So they're U.S. citizens that are watching for the asset within the banks, and the foreign investor has no power, no voting power, no direct influence, none. They only have a management capability within the definitions that is defined by USCIS to come into a partnership. So there is absolutely no foreign influence within the banking model. It is a U.S. entity, U.S. citizens doing it. And so that had to be completely explained, and also we wanted to make sure that they do understand that their asset is vetted and Homeland Security has gone through. And interesting enough, I don't think that any other EB5 company has taken the same steps and measures of security and safety nets that we have placed in at all in this nation. No other EB5 has done that. We have been extremely careful to make sure that whatever we do is completely vetted and verified. So that's what happened with Harvest. I remember Wall Street local newspapers had some title saying that I said something like, it feels like I was watching someone dying in ER, and it really felt that way. But we were not about to break the law, so we just had to sit back. And now we have put our purchase powers into complete mode. You raise your 75%. When you're at the last leg, you need 25%, count on us. USIIC will close that gap, and your bank can be recapitalized.
Now, you almost answered a question that I was going to ask, but let me phrase it more directly, Manaz. There are, under the law that created EB5, there also has been created this authorization for companies like USIIC, regional investment centers. There are several hundred of those around the country. What makes USIIC different from other EB5 regional investment centers?
Our business model. Our impact in the community is far greater than what they're doing. We are a lot more transparent for the investor. As much as investment must be at risk per USCIS, we make sure that that risk is mitigated to the minimum, because we are investing with community banks that are insured by Federal Depositor in FDIC, and we believe we know what we're doing. We believe that our heart is in the right place. We understand what we have to give back to the community and how we have to do it, and we're doing it. Our business model is just superb. I mean, I think if you have another 2 hours, I can have our entire team come in and go through all the numbers for you.
Well, I think one question we have asked is how you make your money, but we need to stop here for just a second. Is that right? Okay, hang on just a second.